In order to solve a linear equation, I need to isolate x. To do that, I need to undo the order of operations. If we look at problem number 1, in order to undo the order of operations, we first need to figure out what operations are happening to x. Well, if we look at this 2, the operation between this 2 and this x is multiplication. If we look at this 3, the operation between the x and the 3 is subtraction. Now, to undo the order of operations, I need to look at the inverse operations for each one of these. So the inverse of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. But I want you to think of dividing by 2 as really multiplication by 1/2. Start to think in your mind that instead of dividing by 2, I want to multiply by 1/2. If I can think of undoing the order of operations by multiplying by the reciprocal, my life will be easier and I can actually do the math in my head. Minus 3, the inverse of subtracting 3 is adding 3. So once I've figured out the inverse of each one of these operations, I then need to decide which one to do first. Well, the bottom level in order of operations is addition and subtraction. So to undo the order of operations, I want to start with addition and subtraction. And the next level up is multiplication and division. So the second thing I want to do is to get rid of this times 2. So let's do these inverse operations in this order. Step 1, I'm going to add 3 to both sides. I'm going to drop my equal sign down. And what happens is I have inverse operations. Minus 3 plus 3 becomes 0. So I really have 2x plus 0. And any number plus 0 is that number. 6 plus 3 becomes 9. Now to get rid of this 2, I'm going to multiply both sides by 1/2. The inverse of multiplying by 2 is multiplying by 1/2. Now if I look at this, I have 2x over 1 and 1 over 2. So I have a 2 in my numerator and a 2 in my denominator. 2 divided by 2 is actually 1. And 1 times x is just x. And 1/2 times 9 becomes 9/2. To check my solution, I'm going to take my calculator and plug x in. 2 times 9/2 minus 3. I do get 6, so 9/2 is my answer. In problem number 2, this 1/3 is affecting x with multiplication, and this 1/2 is affecting x with addition. So the operations are multiplication and addition. The inverse of multiplying by 1/3 is multiplying by 3. Now I could divide by 1/3, but then that's kind of a pain. I have to divide by a fraction. Instead, multiply by the reciprocal. To get rid of adding 1/2, I'm going to have to subtract 1/2. Now I need to undo the order of operations. The bottom level is addition and subtraction, so I want to start there, followed by multiplication and division. So I'm going to start by subtracting 1/2 from both sides of my equation. Drop down my equal sign. 1/2 minus 1/2 becomes 0. These are inverses of each other. And 1/3 x plus 0 is 1/3 x. Anything plus 0 is that anything. Now on the right side, I have negative 11/12 minus 1/2. Now in order to do that, in order to subtract fractions, I need a common denominator. And the common denominator between 12 and 2 is 12. So I can keep negative 11/12, but now I need to rewrite 1/2 with 12 as my denominator. So I need to multiply top and bottom by 6. Now to subtract fractions, I'm just going to look at my numerators first. I have negative 11 minus 6 gives me negative 17, and I just keep my denominator 12. So negative 11 twelfths minus 1/2 is negative 17 twelfths. Step 2, multiply both sides by 3. Three times 1/3, these are reciprocals of each other, they're inverses. I'm going to get 1 for an answer. And 1 times anything is that anything. So 1 times x is x. On the right side, I have 3 over 1 times negative 17 over 12. Well, I have a 3 in my numerator and a 12 in my denominator. 3 twelfths can be simplified down to 1/4. So my answer is negative 17 fourths. Again, I'm going to use my calculator to check my answer. 1/3 times negative 17 fourths plus 1/2. Now I get negative 9.16 repeating. To convert this to a fraction, I'm going to hit Math, Fraction. I do get an answer of negative 11 twelfths. So negative 17 fourths is my answer. And the last problem. I have a whole bunch of numbers that are affecting x. Now there's multiple ways to get this answer. I could distribute and then collect like terms and then solve for x, or I can just solve for x directly by undoing the order of operations. If I look at the things that are affecting x, this 3 is being multiplied. This 5 is being subtracted. This 4 is also being multiplied, and this 2 is being added. So these 4 numbers are affecting x with these 4 operations. The inverse of multiplying by 3 is multiplying by 1/3. The inverse of subtracting 5 is adding 5. The inverse of multiplying by 4 is multiplying by 1/4. And the inverse of adding 2 is subtracting 2. Now I need to use my order of operations to figure out what I need to do first. The bottom level of order of operations is addition and subtraction, so it looks like I should start here. But if I look at this minus 5 plus 5, this minus 5 is inside of a grouping symbol. And the order of operations, if I'm undoing the order of operations, grouping symbols are the last thing that I want to undo. So I don't want to do this step until later. So I need to go to my other addition and subtraction. I need to start here. Now the next level up in the order of operations is multiplication and division. So if I look, I should multiply by 3, or undo the multiplication by 3 by multiplying by 1/3. But if I look, this multiplication again is inside of a grouping symbol, which means I want to do this last in the order of operations. So I need to take care of this plus or times 4 times 1/4. Once I do these two things, then I can get inside of my grouping symbol. And then I need to decide inside of my grouping symbol what I need to undo first. So I'm going to reset the order of operations once I get inside of the grouping symbol. I'm going to start again with addition and subtraction, and then go to multiplication and division. So this is the order in which I need to undo the operations. I'm going to start by subtracting 2. Drop down my equal sign. Plus 2 minus 2, these are inverses, I get plus 0. And anything plus 0 is that anything. That's the identity property. To get this back, I need to add 0. 6 minus 2 is 4. Second step, multiply both sides by 1/4. 1/4 and 4 are reciprocals of each other. They're inverses, which means that when I multiply 1/4 times 4, I get 1. And 1 times anything is that anything. That's the identity property. Notice that after I get rid of this 4, I can get rid of my grouping symbols. The reason I keep these grouping symbols is I need to make sure I do all of this math inside the grouping symbols first, and then do these two things. But if I don't have these two things, I don't need my grouping symbols. 1/4 times 4 is 1. Now I can go to step 3. Once my grouping symbols are gone, I just need to undo the order of operations again. The order of operations resets once I get inside of the grouping symbols. Minus 5 plus 5 becomes 0. 3x plus 0 is just 3x. 1 plus 5 is 6. Last step, multiply both sides by 1/3. 1/3 times 3 becomes 1. 1 times x is x. 1/3 times 6. I have a 6 in the numerator and a 3 in the denominator, which becomes 2 over 1, which is just 2. Check my answer. 4 times 3 times 2 minus 5 plus 2. I do get 6 for an answer, so I know that my answer is correct.